How's it going, everybody? This is Duke Coughlin, and welcome to the Sox On 35th podcast. We are back with another exciting episode and season covering your Chicago White Sox. Boys and girls of all ages, I am privileged to introduce my boys, my Sox On 35th brethren, kicking off our fourth season of Sox On 35th podcast. Like, who would have ever freaking thought? So, Jordan Lazowski, Nik Gaur, 4 seasons. Opening day is Thursday. We have a half pack of cigarettes and a full tank of gas. We made it.
And when you said, when we jumped down, you're like, hey, happy 4th season, ready to kick it off. I'm excited. I'm like, this is 4? I guess it makes sense when you count the number of episodes, but still, it's like, would not have guessed we'd do this. So a credit to us, credit to all the listeners who have been like, made us think, it's worth it to keep going. But yeah, congrats on 4 seasons, gentlemen. This is exciting. I think I'm ready for a full season. As of now, we'll see how I feel in a couple months from now, depending on how this goes. But I think the excitement is there. So here's number 4.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely nice to be over the 100 episode mark as of recent. And it's definitely a big change too from the past. Maybe do like a one-off episode and then forget about the podcast for 6 or more months. So I've really enjoyed this. And like you said, Jordan, I'm excited for this season. And I've probably haven't been this excited for White Sox baseball to start in maybe 4 years. I guess maybe 3, depending on how you see the 2023 team. But that season was kind of over as soon as it began. But yeah, I was watching a lot of World Baseball Classic, and there's so much hype around baseball right now that it's a strange feeling I have, in the back of my head where, hey, I kind of want the White Sox to be playing right now. Like I said, not a feeling I've had recently. I finally caved and bought the CHSN subscription thing. So you win, White Sox. So I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, shout out Brooke Fletcher. Huge fan of CHSN. I would never say anything otherwise about such a great network. I just want to make that insanely clear. No, but gentlemen, we seriously, the fact we've made it this far with how much bad baseball we've been forced to watch, I think it kind of goes to say how we're lifelong White Sox fans, because we've been doing this our whole lives. We just didn't have a microphone in front of us to be able to to talk about it. And we had to get kind of our corks down. We had to get through episodes before me and Laz killed each other. We had to get Nick to talk more and join the conversation. Honestly, dude, your voice sounds very baritone, and I love it. And I think I'm fired up about it. I think it's going to be great.
The good mix for my high pitch wailing half the time. So
I've given up on the idea that your voice is going to get deeper. That's not even a personal attack. I'm just
me too.
But we've made it. We've watched a lot of bad baseball. This is the first season that isn't like convincing myself optimistic, trying to hype myself up, the whole, it's spring. I'm ready for baseball season.
I know you do. You do this every spring, though, Duke. We'll see when we get into the predictions. We'll see how you do. You do this every spring, where you're like, "This is gonna be awesome," and I do appreciate that. Don't get me wrong.
Surprised. I think you will be surprised this year.
Good. I mean, here's the thing. I make fun of it because it shows your love of the game, right? It's why we do this. I look forward to, here's the thing. Like, I look forward to caring enough, not caring enough, but like caring enough is maybe the right word, to where it's like you and I can get into an argument again. Like, I don't think we've gotten into an argument in a minute, where it's like, when the team's losing 100 games, what are we arguing over? I look forward to getting back to that. It is another part of it too. And
well, I think it's a situation where we just kind of both feel bad for each other because we're both miserable, because we're both watching the same team.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. And, I don't have like this sky high, like, idea that the White Sox are going to, win the AL Central or anything like that, or, even finish middle of the pack. More or less what has me excited about this season, kind of what had me a little excited last year, but it's amplified a little bit now, is we have developments we can watch. We're starting to get to see, some of the final stages for some of these guys as they're becoming Major League Baseball players. We're going to have answers on quite a few of these guys. I think we got a really good taste last year. It's a big shame with the situation with Kyle Teel, as we'll get into. because, you wanted as many of these guys healthy going into this season because you want to see what you really have with this group right now before you know, spend big in free agency like we typically, like we always do. Um, I think it's exciting in that sense. It's going to be another one of those seasons where I don't think it's going to be about wins and losses. It's going to be about I completely butchered that, but it's going to be about the Jimmies and the Joes. Like we're going to be worried about the guys that are actually on the field and what they're doing on an individual basis. At least that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I'm looking for great individual performances, guys who buy into the locker room, try to build a culture.
The Jimmies and I've never heard that phrase.
It's a thing.
I can't think of the way the saying goes, but it rhymes with something.
It's
My
X's and
first
O's,
thought was
right?
insanely inappropriate, but I don't
Is
think
it
that's
X's and
it.
O's you're thinking?
It has to be that.
It's not about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. That's what it is.
I've still never
okay.
heard that. So.
That is a big football coach like term. It is the corniest shit ever, but it's something that's said quite a bit. Basically, if like your team has 4 losses in 5 weeks, it's pathetic, but like, they're all freaking 17 years old. It's like, all right, boys, it's not about the X's and O's. It's not about the scoreboard. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. It's about us in the huddle. Like literally.
It's so funny. You saying it and explaining, I'm like, yeah, that absolutely sounds like something that would come out of a football coach's mouth.
Oh yeah, it is, man. I've heard some of the wildest crap in the world come out of football coaches' mouths, but I mean, anybody who's ever played knows. But this is a baseball podcast, boys. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page. Trying not to overdo ourselves on expectations. Be excited baseball's back, be excited that, first pitches are being thrown. The White Sox are starting out season in Milwaukee, which is going to be really cool. I'm going to try to get down there at least for one game, hopefully more. I don't know. I've been on the road a lot lately, so I'm kind of just want to enjoy my bed. But yeah, I think we should tear right into her, boys. So I was personally hurt, although it was kind of the catcher situation with the White Sox leading into this season was never going to play out with the guys we came into spring with. It was never going to be a situation where we came into opening day with Kyle Teal, Edgar Caro, and Corey Lee all kind of out there. There's not enough experience with any of them playing any other positions and having essentially catcher first, maybe first baseman second. It's a tough one to have. Unfortunately, the Kyle Teal injury, like I said a little bit earlier, kind of complicates that. Sorry.
We did make it to season 4 somehow.
Dude, I've talked so much in the last 10 days. It's not even funny. Like I'm shocked I even have a voice. But anyway, I'm going to open the floor up to you guys a little bit. We bring back Reese McGuire. Cannot say I saw that coming. There's a lot of different ways I can go with this. I'm going to try to be appropriate. And I'm going to let Laz come. I'm going to let it come to you. How do you feel about this current situation? Do you think Corey Lee do you think this is setting up for a Corey Lee trade, or do you think he ends up starting the season in AAA?
Yeah, this was weird. The fan reaction was so weird to this, where they're like, oh my God, it must mean like an Edgar Caro trade, or I couldn't see it. There's no reason for this. I think it's fairly out. Like, oh, they wouldn't spend $1.2 million. That's $500,000 over the league minimum. Like they didn't spend that much money on Reese McGuire. Let's at least start there. I don't think this leads to a Caro trade. Listen, there's something about Corey Lee's game that they just don't feel is ready. I've seen plenty of guys put up a 900 OPS in spring training and not be able to do that once you hit the ground running in March and April. So there's something about his game they didn't like. Okay, cool. It sucks. I do hope he finds an opportunity elsewhere, but if not, it'll be nice to have that sort of depth of someone who has played at the major league level and has experienced a little bit of success. At the end of the day, though, I thought the fan reaction was a little weird. I'm like, they didn't want to run with Lee. Okay, cool. Like, are they going to tell us why? Probably not. Can I guess? Maybe there are certain elements of his game that are like, hey, maybe it's this part or that part or something with the hitting, whatever. again, it's when you read too much in those spring training stats, you start having things like, oh my God, they're going to trade Edgar Caro as a result. Oh no, it's just they saw something they didn't like, or they I guess rather preferred something from someone else, and then you got to see what McGuire brings to the table at the end of the day, and once he gets into it, start looking at maybe what he has that maybe at that point you can assume Lee didn't, and what they reprioritized. So I don't know. It's not a huge move to me, to be honest. I thought the uproar was a little bit crazy. I just personally don't care who's catching once or twice a week at most, because Carroll will get the runway until Teal comes back, and then we got the same problem as before. So
Yeah, it's one of those days where I was kind of happy I was not on social media because I saw all the uproar the day after, and like you, I was very confused as to why there were such strong opinions about it. But what's interesting about it to me is you kind of alluded to it just now, but when Kyle Teal comes back, I mean, we're hoping he's back in a few weeks and it's not, a month to month kind of thing. So when he comes back, if Caro and McGuire are both healthy, do you keep McGuire? Do you keep that third catcher throughout the season, or do you, DFA or trade or something, kind of like with Matt Tice last year? So with McGuire, or not even McGuire, with whoever the third catcher is, what makes me a little nervous about that is that it tells me that Venable is still not comfortable putting Teal and Caro in the same lineup unless he has a third catcher on the bench, because he's afraid that if one of them gets injured, you'd lose the DH. And I know it happened once last year, but I've always maintained the odds of that happening more than once in the season are so slim that it's not worth wasting the roster spot on a third catcher who's never going to play. But I'll, I don't want to be broken record. So I'm more interested in what this means for a few weeks from now than what it means right now, because what it means right now is essentially, like you said, Jordan, there's something that they feel McGuire does better than Lee, probably as a receiver, I would imagine, that is worth it for them essentially to make the move.
it's odd to me too, though, because everyone mentions that thing about, he doesn't want to lose the DH. I do wonder if that really is what I have hesitated to say that's what I think it is. Because, there's no way. I think the early opinion of mine on Venables, he's a pretty good manager. It would be hard for me to truly believe he is that stuck on, oh my God, that one time when I lost the DH because of some freak thing that happened, that he's basing his future roster construction on it. That's the only thing that gives me pause on maybe believing that. But at the same time, I do think, even assuming that's not the case, or even if it is the case, the Matt Tice situation is a good one to mirror. Hey, they just needed someone for a little bit. If they really want to carry a third catcher and Lee's around, great, bring him back up. If not, Romo can do the job. I see them doing it that way most likely. I think the Theis example is a good one, Nick.
Yeah, no, I kind of think it's a scenario where I think the plan really before Teal was injured or anything like that we were going to roll through this season with both of them regardless. I was never a personal believer of the idea that, trade talks got super serious on either of those players unless we really got an offer that blew us away. I think the idea is we want to, not necessarily battle, because I think they're both going to get equal opportunities. I don't think one leapfrogs the other unless one has, one catastrophically struggles, which I don't see out of either of those two at this point. I think that was the plan. And I think you see a situation here where at first it didn't make a ton of sense to me, but as I started to think about it, there's a little bit of value in Corey Lee. He's a guy that I think will pop, he can last around the league, whether it's a backup catcher situation or not. He's got a good enough, strong enough arm. He has shown the bat enough at times, and he's still young, relatively young on that side of things. Reese McGuire is a guy where we know exactly who he is. We're bringing him in to cover some time. Maybe he has a nice little run, kind of, similar to Theis last year, where he had a nice run and we ended up trading him for, minimal return, but we still got something out of it. So once Teal ends up getting healthy, I think it's a strong possibility that Reese either gets DFA'd or moved. And then, we have Romo that we specifically signed to be in here to kind of be that guy. But I think it's more of a prioritizing your value, and there's a possibility you can get something better for Corey Lee than, basically having him be in AAA at this point. You have enough reinforcements at this point where, it could be a situation where Corey could have went to the organization and be like, can you know, you guys have been great, everything like that. I think the way you answered the Gets question was kind of hinted at this was, you know, I'm glad you guys have been straight with me this whole time. Time for me to be straight with you. Can you send me can you get me to a team where I have an opportunity to at least like battle for playing time and I'm not the third man out where I'm basically sitting on the bench every night. So I think it's a scenario that was going to play out similar, but with the Teal injury and with seeing Corey Lee having a pretty decent spring, it might be an opportunity where there's enough interest where you can move him for something rather than hedge your bet going into the season. And then eventually he's either going to be a AAA or you're going to trade him or DFA him anyway. So,
Right. I think that's a fair point too. Where it's just like, you know what? See if someone bites on the strong spring training and go from there. Like, there was no world in which he was going to have an expanded role with this team healthy, with those two catchers, with neither Teal nor Caro getting traded. And neither of them, it looked like they even explored switching positions. So once that happened, you know, that it was going to be a problem for no matter who you put there. Put someone who's expendable regardless. And maybe Lee jumps on with another team and gets that opportunity of some sort. But it just wasn't going to happen here. And that's fine. Like, then find an opportunity for him elsewhere and see if you can, I don't know, win a trade somehow. Just somehow you strike luck on this and see what happens.
yeah, I mean, we have a pretty historic resume of trading guys for, you know, failed prospects to try to give them the second chance. So it could be
If you roll the dice enough times, eventually your number comes up. That is not gambling advice. I do not recommend continuing that.
Yeah, no, I think the real story in all this is going to be like, I think there's going to be a lot more legitimacy to trade discussions at the end of this upcoming season about Teal and Caro, because I think the Sox will have a little bit of a clearer picture of which way they want to go, because it's really nice to have. And I think, you know, you benefit by just letting them kind of do their thing right now and, you know, let them find out who legitimately is a better catcher. Don't trade him too early. And then it turns out Kyle Teal is a better catcher, or Edgar Caro just decides that he's going to hit for power magically. You know what I mean? Which is very possible with the way his game has progressed throughout his career. And Teal is just got such a natural power profile to him. So, yeah, so that's the story. Stop talking about Corey Lee. Corey Lee, you're my boy. I hope you do great wherever you go. You were a class act here, and you got a fucking can of an arm. Moving on, unless Nick had anything else, but Mike Vasil undergoes Tommy John surgery. This was a bit of a heartbreaker. Hopefully we're not hanging up his jersey in the, you know, clubhouse anytime soon, but still, like, regardless, very, you know, a very tough one to get at this point. So we have innings we need to eat. Nick, I'm going to let you kick this off. Who's going to eat these innings?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a tough one with Vasil because of the very interesting role he would have played. He probably would have been like last year, where he might start a few games. He might throw 3-4 innings out of the bullpen if you need him some nights, but high leverage and low leverage. So there's not really one person, I think, who can really pick up that slack on the White Sox. They don't really have someone, I think, who's as versatile from that point of view. I mean, maybe Grant Taylor, but they don't want him throwing as many innings, I don't think. So the way I see this happening is I think some combination of Anthony Kay or Eric Fetty or maybe even Jonathan Cannon will eventually move to the bullpen and, you know, have more bulk innings from there. Because when you really think about it, between Schultz and Hagen Smith and Tanner McDougal, maybe even Mason Adams whenever he's recovered, like, there are a lot of guys who are in AAA or close to it that are pretty much knocking on the door to already be in the big league rotation. So I think there's going to be a lot shorter of a leash with the Anthony Kay and Eric Fetty types this year than there would have been maybe last year, where if it's mid-May and they have, you know, like a 6 ERA, for example, it might be bullpen time or, you know, depending on the contract, DFA time. So I don't think one person is really going to eat the innings, but I think the White Sox have enough depth at AAA right now that it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I think the answer I'd hate is like the Sean Newcomb example. It was a great reliever, but like, you have to take this opportunity to be like, hey, we just opened up 100 innings. Like, they had probably projected him for around that many. You just opened up 100. What can you learn from that? Yeah, maybe Newcomb's got to have a few, or maybe this veterans guy got to have a few, but you opened up a solid pool of innings. And I do agree with the idea that Cannon might be one of those guys that fills it. Very similar profile between Vasil and Cannon in terms of arsenal, things like that. We don't have to go a ton into it. But it's the idea that maybe his stuff plays him in the bullpen. Mike Vasil was a former starter, that his stuff looked like it was playing up in the bullpen. Could Cannon do the same thing? I'd be curious to see how that works out. I think it makes the questions we've all asked about Grant Taylor and innings a little bit easier, because now you can probably get him a few more as well, which I think you have to. It would be a failure if he doesn't throw at least 80 innings this year. I think is probably the number, if not more. So just use the opportunities wisely, I think, more than anything else for me. I don't know if there's a specific name I can tell you, like Cannon's probably one, or maybe they bring up McDougal or Schultz or Smith and start them in the bullpen a little bit. But for me, it just makes the most sense to reallocate those innings to somebody who you need to learn more about. In my head, that's mostly Grant Taylor. Like that is the first name that comes to mind is, hey, who do you need to make sure gets enough innings that you learn something about them? From there, other guys I'm okay with. Again, you're going to learn about McDougal's and Schultz and Smiths regardless, like with or without Vasil getting hurt. It's just more so if you were pressed for innings for anybody, make sure those innings are going to that person. To make sure that Sean Newcomb isn't just becoming the new Mike Vasil. I feel like that would be a wasted opportunity.
So one name I haven't heard so far, which I think is a possibility, just to avoid the idea of like McDougal, Schultz, and Smith coming up to fill a role instead of, doing it kind of the right way and having them actually just come up to stay up. Jordan Hicks, I think, is a guy who will probably end up taking on pretty strong role in middle relief. I'm not sure if they're going to move him to the rotation. It's going to depend a lot on what we see out of Eric Fetty, obviously, because he would be the odd man out in that situation. But he's a guy who's experienced in taking innings eater. He's got something to prove too. We've heard this story a million times. Guy who's struggled the last couple of years coming to the White Sox to kind of redeem himself. But not that I'm not buying into that, without any cause. But he's a guy who could do it to just eat some innings. And I think on the Grant Taylor point, I think what's really interesting about that is we're still sitting here kind of wondering what the long-term scope of what he's going to be. Like if he's going to still sit here at like the back end of the bullpen, like, are we going to push him 2 innings, or are we going to try to get Jordan Leisure into a bit of a role here? Because I feel as confident at closer as I have in a long time in Sir Anthony Dominguez. I think he is. If you're not familiar with his game, to anybody listening, this guy's awesome. I'm not guaranteeing success by any stretch of the imagination, but the guy pitches the swagger. He's got a heater. I do not see him moving from the closer role whatsoever. I've seen a little bit of discussion of fans kind of speculating, but I think he's pretty set. The whole answer is going to be who's going to be the 2 setup guys for the 7th and the 8th, or the 8th inning. If you're tied, have a lead, or if it's a tight game. Grant Taylor, with the way we've developed him so far, I would not mind seeing him kind of turn into that lockdown 8th inning guy. Jordan Leisure has kind of bounced around a little bit. He's had a lot of ups and downs, but this would be a season where you'd hopefully see him kind of try to develop into that similar role. And I think, and this is me as a guy who really wanted Grant Taylor to potentially try to start. I think the way that his development's gone so far, I would be a little hesitant to add too many innings to his to it at this point. I want to save him for high leverage situations. I want him to get used to that, because I think we are grooming our potential long-term closer more than we are somebody who should be getting 2-3 innings in a shot.
See, my opinion on that, and I don't want to send us too far down a rabbit hole. If they've already made that decision, Duke, get him bulk innings and trade him to someone who thinks he's a starter.
I kind of had a feeling you were going to say something like that, because I know the argument you're about to make. It's going to be, why are we wasting why are we wasting this time on a highly touted prospect if we're just going to toss him at the end of the bullpen, right?
Yes, when you're going to use 2 years of his service time, and this team was shit.
Correct.
Like they'll be less shit this year, but they'll be shit this year. And folks, they're probably going to be 500 next year too. So you're 3 years through this. And you still haven't seen him on a competitive ball team, and you use 3 years of service time on it. Are those next 3? It's a hypothetical, but it's our 3 years worth of service time of Grant Taylor. Let's just say he's a lockdown closer. Are those 3 years, 2028 through 30, more valuable than getting a potential high quality piece at a different position? I don't know if there's an answer to that. And that's where
Fair
you'd have
question.
to explore it. You would have to explore it. I'm not saying just trade him to trade him. If you don't get something of value back, don't trade him. But if you've already penciled him in as the closer of this team in the future, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because this team is so many pieces away from needing a closer. That's my only concern with it. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. I disagree with the premise of that being what they choose to do, if that makes sense.
So I don't know if you've ever noticed, Laz, but like, have you ever seen how Chris Getz reacts to being asked about Grant Taylor? Like, is it a kid in the candy store where his eyes light up, or is it like visible stress immediately? Because
they hate being asked about this question. Anytime they get asked it, they deflect as much as they can. I think the one thing I always say, when Bannister let it slip about that Tyler Glasnow comparison, I think he told us what they were thinking when he did that. Because what everybody knows about Glasnow is he is awesome when he's healthy. Like, I think when he said that, he said in the back, like, subconsciously, what they were thinking. And the answer is, he's probably a multi-inning guy, but he's a bullpen guy. He'll never throw more than 2 or 3 innings at a time. If that's what you see him as, see if another team with their pitching development staff thinks he can go else. He can be a starter for them. Like Joe Boyle with the A's and Rays kind of idea there too. I mean, Jordan Hicks, when they tried making him a starter, is another good example. Like, some guys, yeah, it probably is just better that they're a high leverage reliever. Can you convince another team to give you something you really need and convince them that Grant Taylor's a starter? If you don't believe it, that's the end of the thing. It's what do the White Sox believe? Again, I'm sending us down a rabbit hole, and I apologize, but
No, I mean,
No,
and really
it's-
quick, that's also why, from an asset management standpoint, what you're saying makes sense. And I remember the three of us had this conversation during our trade deadline episode last year, where Jordan and I both had proposed trades that involve Grant Taylor, I want to say, and we had a similar conversation to this. But the reason I didn't really include him much in my original answer to the question is because I've been operating under the assumption that they do see him as a closer because of the Tyler Glasnow comment. And I don't have access, obviously, to the biomechanical data, so who am I to disagree with that? But at the same time, it is kind of frustrating if that's the case, that, we've given up on this guy because he profiles similarly to a guy who's injured. Like, that feels a little bit reductive if that's really all the thought that went into it. So in a perfect world, I think with the Vasil injury, Taylor would throw 100 innings this year in the majors.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced they're going to do that. And I don't think they're going to trade him either, but I kind of think they should, to your point, Jordan.
I don't know. I if they knew what they like, I see it both ways. I get what you're saying, dude. Like, I don't disagree with the premise of what you're saying. I just, is that where this team's going to be in 2028? Like, I'm not there yet on that. Like, this year will say a lot, and I think we've talked about that a couple times. Like, this year will say a lot about a lot of things and a lot of players. But if you get done with this year and there are still a lot of unanswered questions about future roles, then you have to start answering that question. Like, how are we filling the black hole that is the outfield outside of Braden Montgomery? We're still not sure about what second base, third base, and even first base look like, because Murakami's here for 2 years. So there's a lot of question marks that just, I don't know, at a certain point, the White Sox have a plethora of options at positions that you typically don't need them. Catcher and relief pitcher. They have a lot of excess value there, and you don't necessarily need it there when you have so many deficiencies elsewhere. So
first of all, how dare you slander Luis Angel Acuna and Wisconsin baseball legend Jaron Kelenic?
Listen,
How dare
Kelnick couldn't
you?
even. I wanted Kelnick to make this team so bad, and they just couldn't let him do it.
Oh God, I was so prepared to get a Scherzer, man. It's not even funny. I just like you toss a lot out there, Les. I want to let you know that I agree 100% in principle to what you're saying about where Grant Taylor is in development and where logically you need to be thinking. And I think it's something that Chris Getz genuinely is like battling with. And I thought you brought up another really great point about the idea of where this would leave us this season or after this season if we're not kind of trending in the right direction in the wins column. Because if it's a situation where we're not seeing um, decent improvement as far as how many games we're winning compared to losing, it turns into, and let's say Grant Taylor does great in this role. He turns into a very valuable asset as far as the trade market in winter meetings. It's funny because of how conflicted I am because I've always wanted Grant Taylor to start instead. I will say the only defense I can logistically make to this, as far as wanting to keep Grant Taylor regardless of what happens this year with the team, if he succeeds in this role, is just how dominant, and this is exception to the rule, I know, just how dominant Josh Hader ended up being for the Brewers, because he was kind of in a similar situation where he was brought in, highly touted prospect, was expected to be a stud ace pitcher for him, and he just turned into one of the best closers in baseball for a long time. Again, exception to the rule. Just it's something to consider. Guys like that can be really dominant if this team shows enough improvement. We have yet to see that. So I would be in the boat where if this team doesn't make significant improvement in the win column, which I don't have a ton of confidence in, Grant Taylor looks very valuable at winter meetings next year.
And I mean, I get it. Like, it is hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, trade. You see that good guy? Trade him. Like, that's a tough sell to make.
Especially with where we are as a team.
Right. Like, oh, let's just start. It's like the perpetual rebuild that I know a couple people kind of bring up a ton on Sox Twitter. I think Beef Love does it a ton, where it's like, yes, I get, that's where you see yourself fall into it. But I'm like, when you have excess like value at positions at which you don't need them immediately, you gotta move them. Like, I'm fine having 3 shortstops because you can put one at third, one at second. You might be able to stick one in center field. Can't really do that at catcher.
Historically, shortstop is literally like the jack of all trades. Like, you're playing shortstop because you're the best fielder on the field.
Right. I can move you guys somewhere else. Catcher, I can't really do that. And catchers at the big league level with ABS now, I don't really even need a good framer anymore. I just need someone I can stick back there that catches the ball and throws guys out. Like, that's just going to start shifting how that position's viewed.
I'm telling you, Osmani Grandal, that you just said that.
It hurts me. Don't get me wrong. It hurts me. But you're going to see the evolution of that position shift too. Like, I don't think the White Sox need 2 starting caliber catchers moving forward, and I don't know if they need Grant Taylor to be their closer in 2028. It'll be nice, but I don't know, unless we're redefining that closer role to be more like a 2 or 3 inning role. I just, again, it opens up a larger can of worms that I think, to bring it back to where we started on this topic, you can at least have these conversations, because now there's an easier avenue towards guaranteeing him 80 to 100 innings with Vasil getting hurt, unfortunately. Like, you're making the best of a shit situation. I get that. But that's, if there's anyone, like, the premise of this question being who needs to get those innings, who needs to take a chunk of that 100 innings, you have to find a way now to get Grant Taylor 80 to 100 of them. There is no excuse that you don't do that this year.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting here, because this really all just boils down to where Chris Getz thinks this team is right now, and how soon he thinks, and this, again, I want to say he thinks, this is not me saying this, he thinks they can turn it around and start winning, because it could be fully in Chris Getz's mind that 2028 is a season where we're competing. It's in a typical situation, that's where you'd want to be. That would be ideal situation. The rebuild's going the right way. But, we've kind of played this song and dance a little bit too often to know that that's probably not going to happen. But how long does Chris Getz operate on the idea of where he thinks they're going to be, compared to being able to kind of wake up, smell the coffee, and realize, like, hey, I have to move this valuable asset right now because we are still still a little shallow in other positions. So, all right. That was actually a really good discussion. And
I'm
Laz,
actually surprised.
we're getting
We're
along,
veterans.
Laz. We've
I
grown
know.
in
I'm
4
waiting
seasons.
until this team's good and we just start arguing again. I'm waiting for it. I'm being nice for now.
We keep saying that, but honestly, I think we just might be secret BFFs and we're just not admitting it. It's fine, man.
If you're willing to admit I'm your best friend, like that's something you're gonna have to wrestle with there, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
Plot
oh
twist.
my God, let's not go to like Mean Girls High School here, where we're discussing best friends. Okay, I like you, lads. I'm here for a reason. If I didn't like you, this would not have lasted half a season. So, so kind of like bringing together everything we've just talked about. Obviously discussing a little bit more of the recent moves. And Mike Vasil conversation really turned into a Grant Taylor conversation fast, but final offseason grades. We're heading into opening day. We've seen how things have kind of played out in spring training. Obviously opinions are going to change compared to how you feel about going into pitchers and catchers reporting based on just, the signings and the players that we like, like I brought up Jared Kelenic earlier, really still do wish you the White Sox, but that's whatever. How do we feel, Nick? I'm going to let you kick this off because you've been too quiet and I want to hear that beautiful voice of yours. How do you feel about this offseason this team has had, as far as the players that they brought in? Do you fall towards the national media's belief that it was a great offseason? I always thought that was a little stiff, but are you skeptical? Obviously, I know we all are, but how do you feel? How do you feel about this offseason? I'm answering the questions I'm asking you.
No, all good. And yeah, the beautiful baritone or whatever is only because I'm sick, so it's not usually this low. But
I'm gonna keep you sick all year.
Oh God, I sure hope not. Anyway, so off-season grade, I kind of bounced between two, but I think back to September, and if my September self knew that the White Sox signed Munetaka Murakami, I would be like, oh, A plus, like easy. 'Cause I never even considered it to be a possibility. But knowing that it's a 2-year contract, if he's good, chances are he's not here for more than 2. I mean, I hope he is great and stays here forever, but you know what I mean? We'd have to pay him quite a bit. So while I like that signing, other than that, they really didn't do that much. I mean, they signed, Anthony Kay and Fetty and Austin Hayes. I was going to call him Austin Slater. Kind of similar players, honestly.
Same shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if either Austin is listening to this.
I actually like that signing, to be fair. But anyway, little things like that, right? The trade with Boston, like nothing major. So kind of like a B minus or C plus is kind of what I would give it. Like maybe if I liked Luis Angel Acuna a bit more, I would have given like a B minus or a B, but I'm not the biggest fan of his offensive ceiling, to be honest. So overall, like Murakami alone makes it better than a C, which would be like the default grade for me. But I'll give it a little bit better just because it's him. And then also I didn't hate the moves they made. They just didn't do that much, frankly.
I think everyone liked the offseason, national media liked the offseason because they just did a lot of things. Like they just moved guys around a lot and this and that and tried this and try that. And when you look at it, yeah, there are a lot of good things that happen. You shored up the bullpen, which was a huge issue. Kay adds that Martin Perez type stability. And Murakami is a phenomenal move. So it's, B minus, C plus. I think that's a fair grade. I'm not enamored with the offseason. I don't know. It's a quantity of moves that happened this offseason. You raised the floor, which when we'll get into our predictions, you absolutely raised that floor. How much of the ceiling did you raise remains the ultimate question for me. That's always my measure against things. They didn't raise the ceiling that much. The guys that are here, as long as they hit that ceiling, this team will be good. Murakami is really the only guy who raises the ceiling of this team. And I don't know how good he's going to be just yet. So you maybe added 5 to 6 wins to the ceiling. I think even that might be a little bit generous, but you added a ton to the floor. So that's where you can at least get past the, oh my God, is the over under 45.5 this year? Like you at least moved it in the correct direction. without doing anything so offensive that it'll come back to bite you. And no one's going to look at anything that happened this offseason like, what a dumb move. I think that's probably what gets wanted, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess the only move that could potentially be that would be Luis Robert becoming, National League MVP, but I'd hold off on that bet just for a minute. Yeah, I mean, honestly, besides Murakami, which I don't think anybody really saw coming, it felt like a long shot to start, and honestly, it was nice to not have to look at Kenny Williams sad in a golf cart, missing out on one of our guys. That's my favorite meme of all time. I'm just going to continue to use it. Love you, Kenny. Really. But I think this was an expected offseason. Outside of that, like you said, Laz, honestly, with the way this team's gone the last couple of years, being able to raise the floor is actually a decent little accomplishment for me. Shows that we're bringing guys in that aren't, either ancient or, on their absolute last breath in the league. I'm not saying like their markets were insane, but it was a situation where we're bringing guys that are relevant in Major League Baseball circles, I guess is the best way I can put it. And I think we obviously are going towards the youth movement, which is something I think we should have probably pulled the trigger on maybe a year earlier. I thought we did a good job in spurts last year with it. Obviously, with guys like Chase Mydroth getting the opportunity from opening day on. But I don't hate where we're at. I think Sir Anthony Dominguez was an incredible signing. I'm just personally a huge fan of him anyway, and I can't wait to dance on both of your graves when Luis Angel Acuna turns into a fucking stud. So, yeah, I gotta go B. I'm basically stealing that from you, Nick, because you said that's where you'd be if you liked Luis Angel Acuna a little bit more, and I love him.
That's fair. Honestly. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with his last name, by the way. Like, I don't even care who his brother is. I genuinely really like this guy.
Well, it's about time we get into our predictions then. So let's see if you put your money where your mouth is here, dude, with some of the team MVP type stuff. How high are you on him? No.
No, come on. All right. Do you want me to rip these off, Laz?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'm gonna let Nick go first because Laz has naturally talked too much in this episode.
Shocker.
No, I give you credit. I like the rabbit hole. I am a rabbit hole guy. Team MVP / Cy Young.
Yeah, these are the toughest ones for me because there are like 8 different guys for MVP, and the problem with Montgomery and Murakami is I feel they both have really low floors, honestly. But I'll take Montgomery for MVP just because he feels safe. I don't have a strong feeling about that one though. And then Cy Young, I do feel pretty strongly about Shane Smith. I think that the first half version of him is probably more like what we're going to see this season rather than the second half version of him. I think a lot of the second half struggles are more just him not being used to throwing that many innings, major league season for the first time, et cetera. So I'm still really optimistic about him this year.
I'll go with Kyle Teal. I keep saying, if I had to pick a star from this team, it would be Kyle Teal. So as we're getting into predictions and we're talking about MVP, I don't care that he's going to miss a couple weeks of the season. Like that is the guy that I would pin on the back and be like, this is going to be the one. Cy Young, I think Shane Smith's fair. I'm just going to keep picking Davis Martin until he's not on this team. I love him. I hope he keeps figuring this out and finding ways to getting innings at the big league level. It's no fun to be safe all the time. So
you see what Tony La Russa saw in Davis Martin.
Exactly. So God, don't ever make me say that again.
I honestly, like, I didn't know who you were going to pick for team MVP, and it's going to seem like I'm going completely against you, but it's genuinely like the one guy that comes to my mind because I think I just have loved his progression the entire way. And this is a shout out to Michael Suero, Edgar Carroll. I think he is going to have a fantastic season. I don't think that's going to take any chance away from Kyle Teal to have a fantastic season. I think it'd be awesome to have both catchers make this a harder decision next year for who we keep around. As far as Cy Young goes, I'm going to go with our boy Anthony Kay. I love a lefty on the south side of Chicago.
I honestly think that's going to work out. Like, I think he's kind of just being regarded as like, a 3 guy that's maybe a 4.5 ERA. Like, I think it might be a little bit better. If the over under was set like 4.5 for his ERA, I might sneakily go under that. Like, I think he's gonna find a way to be rather effective. But
I will say it is a super cool scenario that he brought up himself, Eric Fetty, to us. And Eric Fetty ends up being
is
on the
on the team.
roster. You know,
Yeah.
even though I don't expect anything from Eric Fetty, I don't think it's impossible because he did just have a absolute heater of one half of baseball for us a couple years ago. But I think having that guy in the room, I hope their lockers are next to each other because I think Fetty can be a huge source of information as far as getting back on the hump in the major league game. So, yeah, and he's cool dude. All right, more home runs. Munetaka Murakami or Colson Montgomery?
So this is a tough one as well, obviously. I like the question, though. I'm going to take Murakami here, but I'll caveat by saying I think Montgomery has the better season, like as a hitter, but Murakami just has a higher home run total. Also, while we're on the subject, very surprising that we have 3 different MVP picks between the 3 of us and 0 Murakami. I was not expecting that at all. So
Well, we can't just sit here and pick Luis Robert anymore.
yeah, times have changed, I guess.
Yeah, if you really listen back to old episodes, it's curious to see how our predictions change year over year and the names we pick. I honestly exactly agree with that. I put these questions together and I hate them. I'm like, these are tough questions. I would honestly echo that question or answer, Nick, is I think Montgomery will have the better season, but Murakami will hit more home runs. I hope Murakami finds himself at least top 3 rookie of the year. I think that would be cool. That not just for the Sox, but for the game. To see a guy actually succeed like that coming overseas.
So I hate that all 3 of us are gonna agree on this. I'm just gonna say exactly what popped in my head when I read this question. I think Murakami's gonna have a super strong first half. And I think it's gonna be dependent on if pitchers start to figure him out and how he adjusts. But I think first half of the season is gonna be really strong for him, and I think that alone will give him pretty good leeway as far as home runs this season. But I also think this is more of Colson Montgomery is going to be a better all around hitter. I think he's going to prioritize. It's going to be the next step in his development. I think last year was really exciting with the home runs that he hit. I think all of us were a little surprised because that was never really a huge part of his profile, but it showed that something clicked. And I think instead of trying to sit there and be a bomber like your entire career, this is where you take the next step and become a more all around player. And for that reason, I think Murakami's going to hit more home runs. So I'm glad we all agree. God, I hate this question. Most innings pitched. Hagen Smith, Noah Schultz. Most innings pitched in Major League Baseball. Hagen Smith, Noah Schultz, or Tanner McDougal.
Yeah, for this one, I'm going to go McDougal because, to be honest, I kind of think he should have been up last year toward the end of the season. Even though he doesn't have the prospect ranking that those 2 have historically had, I think he probably is the more advanced pitcher at this point. And if all goes well, personally, I would like to see Tanner McDougal in the big league rotation by mid-May or June, if we want to be more realistic, just because assuming he gets off to a decent start, I don't see what reason there would be to hold him back. He clearly figured things out last year, and he's the kind of guy that I could see maybe becoming the best out of those 3. Like I feel like that happens a lot where like the 2 big name pitching prospects and the best one ends up being like that 3rd guy that people don't really see coming for a while. So I don't know. I'm rooting for him. He won me over at Sox Fest for sure.
I think I'm going to go 2 for 2 with Nick here. I do think that of those 3 guys, the first one of them to be in the rotation is going to be McDougal. I think if they bring Smith or Schultz up this year, it'll be in the bullpen to start, and they'll get some of those Vasil innings where it's like 2 or 3 innings at a time. Just get your feet under you, low leverage. Might be a couple starts here and there, but it'll be like a 2 or 3 inning start. I don't see them using those 2 guys the same way that they use McDougal. I just think McDougal's on a different planet right now in terms of his ability. Schultz can get there. Smith can get there. McDougal, I think, is just in a different class between those 3 right now, and I'm surprised that rankings have not caught up with that. I don't know if it's age or whatever it might be, and he's not old, don't get me wrong, but it's like He's been around with the team a little bit longer. Whatever it is, I am surprised the prospect rankings have not caught up with what I feel like is the actual best starting pitcher in this prospect pool for the White Sox.
So to answer this question as bluntly as I can, I think Hagen Smith and no Schultz, and this isn't a bad thing. This is how I would prefer this development go, but they're going to be the coddled out of the three here, based on draft position, based on projected ceiling. And the big thing with Hagen Smith and no Schultz is before they would make another step up to the next league, they had dominance before they were moved up. It wasn't a situation where, no Schultz. I mean, this guy's great. This guy's stuff's great. He had 3 great starts in single A. Let's move him right on up to double A. No, we waited until he just was embarrassing people out there. And it's kind of the same thing with Hagen Smith. I think both of them, I think, are very similar with what their strengths are and where their ceilings are. But Tanner McDougal, he's going to be the guy that's going to get, and this isn't necessarily a great situation for him to be in. And it's not a situation he would be in if he was more of like that highly touted prospect with more investment into him. And that's not taking anything away from his talent. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the first guy up from AAA to just play cleanup. He's going to be the 6th starter to pitch in double headers. He's going to be the guy for long relief. If we have to start somebody who's, if we had to situate like a big crunch in our starting rotation, he's going to be the guy we're going to bring up to basically do all the dirty work. Hopefully that develops into him being a, full on piece of the rotation at some point, because I think he's shown more than enough to be able to move in that direction. But he's not going to be put in an ideal situation early on. He's going to have to show it. And the White Sox are not going to do that with Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz. And I would not be surprised if they really waited to even give them any sort of experience on the major league level until near the end of the season, kind of is like the final call up, so they can go into next season for sure on the major league roster. More plate appearances. This is a dumb question, lad. Sam Antonacci with the White Sox or Team Italy?
That is not a dumb question, first of all.
Petty. It is petty.
I mean, okay, I'll start. I mean, I think I'm taking the over on it more with the White Sox, but I will say that I do think the pendulum has swung really hard, really fast on Antonacci, and that I like him. He's a good player, obviously good prospect, but I think now everyone's hopes are too high because he was showing out on the national stage. And I think what's more intriguing to me is if he plays outfield. I know he was playing I believe it was left field toward the end of spring training. If he can be a left fielder, and he's starting in AAA is what's been rumored. So if he can be a left fielder in AAA, I think we could see him in June or July. But I don't foresee him coming up in April or May and stealing Chase Meyerowth's job like some people are already assuming will happen. So again, I like him, but more than 23, but I'll say fewer than like 200 at the same time.
And because of that, I don't know if he's going to play left field. His arm is not very good. You saw him playing short for Team Italy. Not very good. The guy he threw out at home. Yeah, not very. We're all probably thinking of the same like 5-hop throw he threw from short. Yep. Like he's got a second baseman arm. So that means he doesn't play left field either, really. If they start moving him into left field, then I would take the over. For now, I'm taking the under. I don't think I need to see a repeat more than anything else. That is the one guy I would need to see a repeat. He showed out on the national stage and he hit like $150 though. Like, so there's a concern about the talent, that he was facing, not his talent, but more so that once he got to that upper echelon of talent. And the third piece is there's too many guys still here. They got to evaluate. They still got to figure out my draft. They don't have to figure out Montgomery, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Like you got to make sure he's getting at bats. Lenin Sosa is the name that not a lot of people talk about and is still here. So you got to get him at
still
bats.
Here.
So he's still got to get at bats. And if they move Acuna, if they decide, hey, let's just not stick him in center because he's not a center fielder based on arm, whatever, then he would have to get at bats at second base. You've got Curtis Mead still on this roster. So it's like there are a lot of guys that are going. There is going to be a lot of guys who need playing time. I just don't see where I would be like, Antonacci, go prove it again. And then if one of these guys struggles bad, then guess what? You're probably the first name to be part of the starting 9 for 2027. But I would take the under as of right now. The only world in which that changes the arm becomes good enough to play the outfield.
So I'm with you nearly 100% on this, Laz. I think make him force us to call him up.
Mhm.
Like let's like we are not in a situation where we need to be rushing guys. Like this guy, like Sam, not only like really talking to him, like he's honed in. Like he very much has. You can tell us he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. All he wants, we all see it. It's freaking huge, and I love that. I love that about him. I think that really drives the potential of him being a freaking stud down the line here. But why do we have to rush him? Why does he have to be on that major league roster this year? Like, if it, make him force the issue, like make him just tear like every bit of the minor leagues up before he gets here. Otherwise, like I don't see a reason to rush him. I'm 100% with you on it, Laz. There's too many guys right now. We need to see what they are. That we don't need to be rushing Sam up to the majors just to send more of these guys down to AAA so we can spend another offseason wondering what we have in these guys. Let this wave play out. And Sam, I based on how I feel about the kid, he's going to be right there in the conversation next year. It doesn't need to be rushed.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that I'm the lower guy here. I thought you guys were going to be all aboard the hype train, get him opening day roster. So I'm actually really happy that I'm like, and to me, it's not even, to be clear, it's not an anti-Sam thing like Duke was saying. I just really like Chase Madroff personally, and I think people are really sleeping on him all of a sudden. When he was Antonacci's age as last year, he had a 440 on base percentage in AAA when Antonacci was in AA. Like there are levels to them. You know, I think Madroff is like a slightly better version of him as a prospect. Doesn't mean he'll be a better major league player, but the burden of proof is on Sam there, not on Chase.
I would agree with that completely.
Yep, 100%. I don't think it needs to be said how highly I feel about Chase Madroff. I did not take offense to that at all, Nick. I didn't even take it that way. So
good.
You're good, buddy. Like I said, ask Brett how I feel about Chase Madroff. You can tell you all fucking about it. Most surprising call up this year by the team.
This is one where I struggle to think of a name because we kind of expect the big three pitchers we just talked about, and we expect Braden Montgomery. So there are a couple I could say that I'll leave to you guys. I expect you to say them, but I'll say Aldrin Batista. He was a really solid pitcher in high A, but he had Tommy John surgery, missed most of last season. But he's been kind of stuck in single A for a couple of years, and he had really good performance down there. He just didn't get promoted when he should have because, frankly, the rotation above him was so stacked. It was like Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz, et cetera. There just weren't spots really. So I wouldn't be surprised if he recovers from Tommy John and starts at AA potentially, or at least high A for like a month. And then at the end of the season, he gets like a cup of coffee in the majors if he continues pitching like he did. So again, I kind of struggled with this one, but I've always liked Batista as a prospect as long as we've had him. So I would like to see him get a shot.
You ready for this one? You don't know where I'm going with this one.
William swear to God, if you say my guy.
William Bergolla is the name I'm going with. The organization seems to love him, like almost like the, and it would be like when you expect them to call up Antonacci, they would call up Bergolla instead, kind of like they did with Jose Rodriguez a few years ago, where it's like just pull him out of nowhere. It's super weird call up, just going to be there for a couple weeks, nothing crazy. They got one of those names every year. The organization seems to like Bergolla. I'm hedging my bets on he's this year's like 2-week Jose Rodriguez. And they go from there.
It's a good one.
So I'd probably, you know, you kind of nailed it, Nick. It's hard to really say someone that would be like too surprising. But I've kind of watched this last year with how highly touted he came in as a prospect, and it seemed like everyone but White Sox Dave kind of forgot about him for long stretches of time. But I think Braden Montgomery, if he gets hot enough in the minors,
that would be a surprising call.
But like that's another situation where, you know, where I was kind of saying the last point, like Sam, make us force you to like bring you up. Like I think Braden could just do that because he's playing great baseball and he had a really good camp, and I think team's really high on him. Like honestly, I think it'd be really good for the culture because he seems like a super freaking sociable guy and is great Instagram follow, by the way. I think it would be surprising. It'd be shock value because I really think he gets lost in the fray when we're talking about prospects during the season. But he's a guy who's just consistently just kind of lunch pail producing. Really gets White Sox Dave excited. So, We got 2 more. Surprising pitcher or hitter who gets impactful innings pitched at bats this year.
Kind of
You can
similar to
pick
the
one
last
or the
one.
other. You don't have
Yeah.
to. It would be too hard to pick both, to be honest. If you can come up with one name for this one, it's a good
Well,
one.
it's the key of the or. You typed these questions, brother.
I know. I'm just making sure I got my thoughts out properly for everybody.
Thank you. So for this one, I'll go with Shane Murphy. He's a guy I don't think anyone has talked about yet. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but another one of those AAA pitchers who had like a 1.6 ERA last year, and just again because of Smith and Schultz and McDougal and everyone else, kind of a forgotten guy. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's one of those first guys up from Charlotte when there's a starting pitching injury. So Shane Murphy, I think, is maybe not surprised because he's already in AAA, but a lot of innings pitched just because he's already so polished. He's like a good candidate for that.
Is Drew Thorpe an acceptable answer to this question? Because, like,
I love it.
I like it. Yeah.
it's again, I've never been high on him. Let's start there. I don't
We
think
know.
I'm high on him, and
We
maybe
know.
that's why it becomes impactful. Because I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he comes out of nowhere, comes back from Tommy John, and all of a sudden he's throwing 95, 95, 96. If that's the case, my opinion on him just completely changed. That being said, I feel like when you talk about guys forgotten in the fray, it's going to be him because of the timing of his injury. Let's see what happens. If it's an acceptable answer, I'm going with it.
I really don't have a great answer to this question. This is, I mean, what's surprising with this freaking team? Okay.
Anything, truly. But the crazy thing is, like, they'll do like the Jose Rodriguez type. They'll just do something, and it's like, that was odd. Or you'll skip guys right from AA to the majors on the pitching side, whatever. They'll just do weird things.
Like,
It's like, all right, let's see what happens.
basically
Thorpe's
where
a
I'm
great
at is,
example.
like, I feel like I'm looking for my Jake Lamb right now. Like the guy that
Yeah, no,
nobody
fine with
expects or wants. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying, like turning it over. Like it's surprising,
Derek Hill.
not in a good way, but it's surprising.
The answer is Derek Hill, if that's what you're looking for.
God, Derek Hill.
That's why Jared Kelenick's not on this team. Just remember that.
There's gonna be so many guys that are gonna get fucking at bats. Curtis Mead. I don't know. That'd be fucking surprising.
That's a good answer. Curtis Mead is another, like, the answer to this question is like, who's the forgotten name? Curtis Mead, you
Right.
didn't even remember was on the roster 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
I could not be Curtis, rooting for you, brother. I could not be any lower on this guy if I tried. I guess that speaks to like me basically stopping myself from answering this question with Lenyn Sosa, knowing he's going to get a shit ton of at bats. You know what I mean? No offense, Nick. I know, but yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Just with where this team is, like, there's going to be so many fucking different faces. There's going to be so many prospects we've barely heard of who just find their way into the majors for whatever reason, whether it's injury or just completely downfalls of guys like Jordan Hicks, where it's like, we have no expectations for you. Go get them, Tiger.
Right.
So, all right. I think that's a good point to get us at.
No, we got to go over under.
Oh, shit. That's right.
Yeah.
I hate this
Then
part.
we'll end it.
I hate this part. I always fucking way overdo it.
Yeah. It's over, and they're going to win 82 games. Duke Coughlin, everybody.
Sorry for
You didn't
trying to bring a
surprise
little
us.
bit of confidence and positivity in your life. Fuck you. I actually had this exact discussion on Twitter today of somebody being like, man, I just can't stand all this negativity before opening day. And it's like, brother, you know exactly what's going to happen in like a week, dog.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I mean, I'm at least taking the over. I'd say 68, I think, is going to be my prediction of wins. They will not lose 100. So what is that? 68 and 94? I think that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, that's actually my exact prediction. This, the one time I don't go first, someone else takes my prediction. But yeah, I completely agree. They're better than last year. I mean, last year the second half they were pretty much like in terms of run differential, they're like pretty much a even team. So I think a little bit of that is going to regress in terms of like home run luck, and pitching won't be as good. But overall, yeah, 68 wins feels right.
God, I hate that term home run luck. I just remember when we used to hit so many home runs. Like, can we just get the Todd Frazier White Sox back just for a freaking year?
That would be fun.
You know what? Screw you guys. Over 69. Fuck you. Nice. Great number. Super fun. I would love to see, like, dude, if this team won 70 games, I'd be over the fucking moon. So, regardless, as I said at the very beginning, I think we can all agree it's not about the it's not about the X and O's, it's about the Jimmies and the shows.
Sure. Whatever. I've gone 29 years, never heard that. It usually stops at the X's and O's part when I've heard it.
Buckle up your chin strap, Laz. On that note, now I think we should get out of here because we've been talking for a while. Go. These people are going to be sick of us before we even get through the Brewer series. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have this week for the Sox on 35th podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the website, soxon35th.com, as well as following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at soxon35th to stay up to date with your Chicago White Sox. Remember to send out your love. This has been Duke Coughlin, joined as always by Jordan Lazowski and Nik Gaur. We'll be back soon as we cover more White Sox baseball. Thank you, and go Sox.
What? Go Sox?
I'm confused with that too. Go Sox.